The ad stuck out like a sore thumb on the wall at a coffee shop I frequented. It was also new, given that I was at the coffee shop the previous day and the poster wasn't there. At the time, I was unemployed and living at home with my parents, so every time I would go to the coffee shop, I would browse the wall in search of jobs I could possibly obtain. Of course, there wouldn't be any big-paying jobs available, but I hoped there would be something appealing. And in the middle of that wall was that poster about a summer camp located many hours away from home. I don't know why it piqued my interest, though it was probably the aspect of me being able to get away from home. A job that would let me live somewhere without my folks sounded luxurious to me. It also paid decently well. So after thinking over it a bit while sipping my coffee, I decided to take the poster off the wall and bring it home. The shop allowed that, of course. I wasn't going to steal anything I wasn't allowed to take. As I walked out of the coffee shop, I noticed a blonde-haired lady staring at me from the opposite side of the street. Once I noticed her, we stared at each other for a few more seconds. After binge-watching a show, I decided to call the phone number on the poster. After a few rings, someone picked up. Then she began walking away. I found it odd and a little creepy, but didn't harp on it and walked home. I arrived home and watched TV for a few hours. "Hello?" a female voice said. "I'm actually calling about your ad looking for employees. I wanted to apply as a janitor." "Hi, is this Camp Oakwood?" I asked. "The camp has 6 one-week sessions, and you'll be working each one. You will be one of 4 janitorial maintenance employees. I am your overhead boss, but your supervisor will be Graham. He's the head of the maintenance staff." "Yes, this is," she answered. "Are you calling today to register your child as a member?" "Oh no," I said. "I believe you'll do a great job. If you have any more questions, you know where to contact me. Welcome to the Oakwood family." Oh, our online ad? During the entirety of the questioning and introductions, we both had not given our names. No, it was a poster in a coffee shop in my town. Well, we don't print many ads, but we put some up from time to time. Yeah, sorry. My name is Amy Garlania, and I'm the camp director. She then asked me for my phone number, email, and asked a few questions. I told her basic information about myself. After answering them, she told me when I would need to show up to start working. I was confused and asked her what she meant. "Well, can't wait to meet you, Harrison. See you soon." "You're working at Camp Oakwood?" "Yeah," she said. "You're hired. We need people." After failing to get anything, I went back to my room. I figured there was more to it, but at the moment I was just too grateful and exited to really worry about it. They were trying to whisper, but I could still hear a decent amount of their conversation. "That's the place I told you about." "Wait, so I don't need to do a background check or something like that?" I asked. "I haven't heard that name in a long time. That's because I worked there myself many years ago as a counselor. The camp started long before he was born. Nothing's gonna happen. If something does, he can handle himself. After all, he has before." "Nope, I believe everything you told me," she said. "You're hired." I guess my dad must have had some bad memories from that place or something. After a few seconds of shock, I became ecstatic. My mom was thrilled to hear that I would finally have a good-paying job, but my dad practically spat out his food. "That's great," I said in disbelief. "When do I start?" "You will need to come in May 26th for orientation training, and the first camp will start the following week." "Cool, thank you for hiring me." "You're absolutely welcome." Just as she was about to hang up, I realized I hadn't even given my name. "Wait, I never got your name," I said. "Oh, shit," she said. "Okay," I said. "My name is Harrison Tracy." I then heard a thump and her gasp in pain. "You all right?" I asked. "Yeah, I'm good," she said. Just banged my elbow on my desk. I hung up the phone with mixed emotions. While grateful that I found a job, I found it perplexing that I was hired so quickly. That night, I told my parents about my new job. "Curtis, you okay?" my mom asked. "Yeah, I'm fine, honey," he said, grabbing a napkin to clean his mouth. "Yeah," I said. "It pays really well, and I heard it's an easy job." "Sorry for my reaction, Harrison," he said. "Really?" I asked him, to which he nodded. I proceeded to ask him some questions, but he seemed very hesitant to answer them. Later that night, I heard my parents talking in their bedroom. "He can't go," my dad said. "We don't know if that is," my mom responded. They went back and forth for a while. I honestly had no clue what they were talking about. I guess my dad must have had some bad memories from that place or something. When the time came, I packed up my stuff, told my parents goodbye, and headed off to Camp Oakwood. Amy told me I would be living in a 2-story housing wing located about 50 yards away from the main camp. There were 4 apartments, 2 on each floor. 2 or 3 employees would live in each one. The counselors would be sleeping in the cabins with the campers, so that left the nurses, cooks, and maintenance staff inside the wing. There were 11 of us, so I had a 1/4 chance of getting a 2-person apartment. I didn't really care, but I craved privacy, so I was hoping for the best option. I must have been lucky because I got the two-person room. When I arrived, someone was inside unpacking. He was a pretty young guy, maybe a bit older than me, but very muscular. I made my way in to introduce myself. "Hey, I'm Harrison," I said. "Julio," he said. "Nice to meet you. I guess you're my roommate?" "I'm new here, so I don't know who else is here besides you and Amy." Julio chuckled and then said, "Same." He then pointed to a guy pulling things out of a white truck before introducing him as Carson, the fourth and final maintenance worker. Carson just waved to us and continued on what we were doing. At least I'm not alone. I turned to see a large older dude with a Santa Claus-style beard and tinted glasses. Before I could speak again, I heard someone walk in. He didn't say anything or acknowledge us in the slightest, so I assumed he wasn't a social butterfly. "Julio? Harrison?" he said, his deep voice bellowing. We both said, "Yeah." We clean every building 3 times a week, taking out the trash, dusting the rooms, and getting rid of any infestations. We also take care of the nature aspect, so lawn care, trees, etc. The last day of each session is a party day, so we also set up decorations, props, and other kiddie stuff. I'm in charge of you guys. I just wanted to come by and introduce myself. I'm Graham. I'll be next door to y'all with Carson and one of the cooks. I'll come back in a half hour. Then he left. "Oh, well, nice to meet you," I said. "And you guys as well?" Graham said. "Do we start work today?" I asked. "No, but I will be showing you around. Basically what you will be doing and the like." Like he said, Graham returned 30 minutes later. "All right, guys," he said. "Follow me." Accompanying Graham was Carson. Now closer, I could get a better look at him. He was old as well, but skinny and bald. Graham led us to a large golf cart, and we all hopped in. As we drove off, Graham began speaking. "Okay, so our job is pretty basic." He went on about how when we clean the cabins, we have to make sure we put every bag and piece of furniture back in place. We also had to keep an eye out for wild animals, as they could be dangerous to the campers. Basically, Graham said before bellowing a laugh. There was also a small building that Graham said was a chapel, but he said it was never used and we wouldn't need to worry about it. He showed us several of the activity areas during our drive. "I'm still surprised Amy was able to get this all situated in just 2 years," Graham said quietly. "We had to move camps 3 years ago because the city bought us out," Graham said, knowing he had to explain now since I'd heard him. It was actually then that I finally saw her in person. She was a middle-aged woman, maybe my parents' age, with gray-streaked black hair wrapped in a ponytail, and a face that matched her age. We usually don't get that many new employees, so they are probably just surprised to see someone new. Graham told us to mingle with the new counselors so we could at least know who we would be working with for the next 7 weeks. I thought his response was odd, but I didn't ask anything afterwards. However, I was immediately made very uncomfortable by the ones I met. Inside, there was a small light flickering at the far end of the room. I could see the outline of someone kneeling on the ground, their back facing me. Once inside, I slammed the door behind me, scaring Julio half to death. Some dude just scared me on the way back. Look, just don't worry about it. Maybe she was right. The counselors might be just really weird people. Every time I would introduce myself, they would just stare in astonishment at me. I haven't figured out how to do it yet, but I'll figure something out. The last thing we need is another innocent person being attacked by one of your employees. I heard voices coming from outside my window. It was as if they were staring at an elite celebrity making a surprise appearance. I turned to see Amy looking at me with a stern look on her face. After being made thoroughly uncomfortable, I went into the bathroom and hid until it was time to eat dinner. "I don't need any more shit starting because of you, Harrison." Julio, thankfully, didn't wake up from me moving around. During my walk, I passed by the chapel again. "Besides, you wouldn't be able to let me go without me being a threat to your safety." The man was pretty tall, his body stocky and built. Besides, I don't get their obsession with this guy. He was shirtless, and in his left hand was a red book. Rather, it was crying of joy. Then he began whispering again. "Now come on, I want to show you the shed with all the lawn equipment in it." Every few seconds, one of them would look my way. Julio and I split off to meet the others individually. She told us that she was glad we had decided to return to work for the camp, and that she was excited for another great summer. I ended up staying back to talk to Amy about the counselors acting weird around me. But whenever I said my name, that's when they began to act weird, I said. "What?" I asked. I knelt down and put my ear up to the door to listen, and I began to hear whispering. I then began to hear crying, but not of pain or despair. The figure was now right against the door, looking out the window, staring at me with any angry look his face. I recognized it to be Carson. I bolted back to the apartment, and was thankfully not followed by Carson. I could see how uncomfortable you were, plus I couldn't help but notice that they were constantly staring at you. "I'll make sure once again it's him," Amy said. They kept talking, but I stopped listening. "What do you want?" I asked. "Really?" I asked angrily. "These guys have been staring at me for the last 10 minutes, I said annoyingly. "I'll deal with them. Sit back down and eat." As I looked around the room, I saw a large painting of a man. "What are you doing?" someone asked. "Okay," he said. "What did he do?" A few days later, Camp Oakwood's first session officially began. Around 100 campers, aged 5 to 10, were dropped off by their families for their week-long stay. After the staff finished their cringy introduction, the campers were all brought to their respective cabins to, I assume, unpack their belongings. Julio and I watched from outside our apartment as the mass of children were greeted by a cheerful Amy and all the counselors. Graham put Julio and Carson in charge of setting it up, while Graham and I were to clean it up once the whole thing was done. A 50-50 split of work, as Graham liked to call it. On one hand, I was still creeped out by the counselors and other staff, and I didn't know how bad the kids would be. He was young as well, maybe my age, with really light blonde hair and a fade-styled haircut. "I've already called the nurses," he said. "They're on their way. The last thing we need is someone else to get sick." "All right, guys, we're heading to the main lodge." We had all of our cleaning supplies ready, but we had to fight the smell and the urge to vomit at the same time. "Paxton, stay here. The nurses will be here soon. Everyone else, let's go." Apparently, a camper had already vomited all over his cabin's floor and some of the campers' bags, and we needed to clean it up. The smell lingered, but not as strong as before. Graham told us that on the first night of each session, there would be a big bonfire that was supposed to symbolize the beginning of the campers' time at Camp Oakwood. "Hey, look at this," I told Julio while pointing at it. "That's what Graham told me," I said. "Some more hero." At that moment, I was feeling mixed emotions. Graham and Carson were already busy setting up bullseye targets at the archery station, which meant that we, the rookies, would have to get our hands dirty. We arrived to see about 20 campers and 2 counselors outside the cabin holding their noses with their shirts from the smell. One of the counselors, who I had not yet met up to that point, came running up to us. With that, they briskly made their escape, leaving Paxton alone with us. "Yeah," Julia responded. "He defeated a powerful tribe back in the 1800s. They were heavily outnumbered and on the brink of defeat, but Horace mounted a tremendous comeback and managed to defeat the tribe." "Yeah, that was the nickname Horace made for himself. We now need to go set up the rec center." When Graham drove us by the rec center the previous week, the doors were closed. I was already fed up by the counselors doing this, so I already knew I wasn't going to deal with this bullshit. However, given what happened in the chapel the week before, I didn't want to confront Carson on my own. So I stopped what I was doing and decided to tell Graham, who I found back in the shed pulling out a box full of board games from one of the shelves. Graham told us what was in there, but he never told us that it wasn't set up yet. "Well, why don't you tell him you have a problem with it?" he asked me. He could probably tell I was holding something back, but he accepted my excuse and told me he would handle it. But even before that, you were already uncomfortable, and honestly, looked a little scared every time we are around Carson. From Carson in the chapel to Amy, Graham, and Carson talking outside our window in the middle of the night, Julio just stared at me, taking in what I was saying. When I was finally done, all he said was, "Wow, I'm very creeped out right now, dude," I said. But I could have told Graham as well, since he seemed to be on my side when I found him, Amy, and Carson talking outside my room the previous week. I made a mental note to at least tell Graham when I had the chance, but I had to find the right moment to do so. Julio could tell something was up, so I needed to either come up with an excuse or spill the beans. I needed help, and keeping it on my chest would only make it worse. Graham dropped the three of us off and told us to keep our walkies on in case something popped up. There were also smaller games like checkers and chess that were set up on benches and tables. Given that you just told me everything, I'm involved in this shit just as much as you are now. He then went outside to smoke a cigarette. In the end, Carson nodded, and Graham walked back to the shed. I know, he said. You know, I've noticed you're always very uncomfortable around Carson. It was mainly used by the more quiet campers during the free time of the day, which was during the 2-hour interval for lunch. So he was a badass? I asked sarcastically. Yep, Julio said before we both laughed. Was he called Chirino? I asked. We had already eaten lunch earlier in the day before the campers arrived, so we wouldn't have anything else to do until the bonfire later that night. While I was on the couch watching some show on our really old TV, Julio piped up from the small kitchen. He never explained how he came up with it and what it was based off. Hey Graham, we finished cleaning up the vomit. What now? There was a small locked shed behind the rec center where all of the stuff was kept. As I previously mentioned, the rec center was a small shelter that had games such as ping pong, foosball, and air hockey. Well, it was supposed to have all of this stuff. The problem was nothing had been set up yet. While setting up, I kept noticing Carson taking glances at me, at one point staring at me for a solid minute. Hey, Graham, I said. Carson will not stop staring at me. I really wanted to explain what I had seen the previous week in the chapel, but I bit my tongue and just told I was very creeped out by him. As I walked out, I could see Graham and Carson talking, but couldn't hear them because they were talking quietly. After we finished, we hopped back in the cart and drove back to our housing building. Beats me, I responded. Amy probably just hires anyone who is interested in working for this camp. He's a very weird guy. I don't know what you're talking about. Come on, man, it's obvious you're creeped out by him. So I ended up telling him everything. I stood there, wondering if what I just did was the right decision. I mean, someone needed to know, and I spent more time with Julio since we practically slept in the same room. But I could have told Graham as well, since he seemed to be on my side when I found him, Amy, and Carson talking outside my room the previous week. Later that night, all the campers and staff gathered around the campfire. Just being able to hang out with my other friends and giving the campers a good summer camp experience. How has it been for you? He introduced himself as Percy before proceeding to tell me that he's been a counselor since they moved locations. I always like coming back since it's so much fun, he said cheerfully. Just a couple of minor scuffles on the playground or escalating arguments over the ping-pong paddles. Well, good, he said. It's always great to hear that new staff members are enjoying it here. The small bell sounded like 1,000 chorusing church bells. Oh, it isn't, he said. These guys are the most behaved and peaceful kids you'll ever meet. It was honestly so angelic that I looked up at her to make sure she wasn't playing a recording or something. After I looked up, I noticed everyone, though only some were singing along, were all bowing their heads. Well, except for one other person. Amy loves music. She studied it in college and has always had a passion for it, so she likes to implement it at some points during each session. You would think most campers would branch out with those who are older and younger, but they stick together in their age groups like glue. Also, most campers aren't as happy the rest of the session as they are on the first night. We made eye contact with each other. I made a confused face trying to figure out why he was away from everyone else. My phone was in my bedroom charging, so if I had to call for help, I would have to build up enough courage to get out of the bathroom. I eventually peeked my head outside the door, and when I did so, I saw no one in sight. After spending about 10 minutes under the shower head, I turned off the water, grabbed a towel, and pulled open the shower curtain. I thought I had placed them on the countertop before I got in, but I must have forgotten to. I turned around and saw a hooded figure dressed in black and wearing sunglasses holding a camera. Amid the chaos, I managed to grab the back of his hood, making the back of his head visible. I would have ran after him, but I was in only a towel and barefoot, and the ground outside was gravelly. I recognized him based off the blonde, fade-styled haircut. We just stood there, watching everyone else eat their Seymours before they began to disperse back to their respective cabins. As planned, Julio and Carson left, so Graham and I were the only ones who would be extinguishing the fire and cleaning up the remnants of chocolate and marshmallows. I didn't know if that was allowed once a session was in progress, but I decided not to do anything about it. I then turned back around and bowed my head once again. For all of you who are returning for another fun summer, we're glad to have you back. We are very glad to have you all here tonight, and I am looking forward to getting to know each and every one of you over the next week. We will pass out Seymours soon, but before that we will sing the camp's official song. But to those of you who do know it, feel free to sing along. Well, don't tell anyone I told you this, but there was one thing that happened a while ago. With that, she raised the bell over her head and shook it. Amy finished her song, and everyone looked back up at her. "It's a small ceremony done at the beginning of the camp," Graham said. "Graham told me I could get a s'more if I wanted one, but I told him I wasn't hungry. You seem happy about that," I said. To be honest, I didn't think Graham could become that emotional or deep. That's when I noticed the bathroom door was cracked open. Damn it, I left them out here, I thought to myself as I reached out for them. Julio returned a few minutes later to find me shaking in terror. "Dude, you all right?" he asked worriedly. "Somebody broke into the apartment and took a picture of me," I told him. "It was Percy." "Who's Percy?" he asked me. "That counselor from Cabin 5, I told him. "Have you called the police yet?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "I guess I'm still in a state of shock." "Okay, I'm gonna call Amy. Go put your clothes on." I grabbed my clothes and went back into the bathroom. Graham, meanwhile, sat there silently. Through the door, I could hear Julio on the phone. Besides, if he didn't steal or break anything, and all he did was just take a photo of you, I don't think the police should be involved. About 2 minutes later, there was a loud knock at the door. I asked her if she wanted me to call the police, but she said it wouldn't be necessary. Julio opened it, and both Amy and Graham walked in. Amy quizzed me on what happened, wanting to make sure that it was indeed Percy who broke in. "You had nothing to do with this." After several minutes of questioning, Amy got up to leave. "As your boss, your well-being is one of my priorities. If I can get him to both confess and destroy the photo, then we should be all right, and I can just send him home." Before I could even respond at all, she slammed the door, leaving the three of us in the apartment. "Sorry about this, Harrison," Graham said. "Hey, no need to apologize," I told him. "Or maybe I should go and ask Amy about it." "I know, but still, you're my employees," Graham said. I, now legitimately scared, just nodded, and he let go of my arm. "Same with you, Julio, though I doubt you will." "Percy's probably gonna get fired," Julio said. Graham sighed and then began. "I don't even know if it was him," I said. Amy freaked out when she heard the news, and spent a full day and night searching for her, alone in the woods. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity, and was sent to a psych ward. Amy tried to reopen the camp the following summer, but not many families signed their kids up out of fear that something would happen again. So the summer after that, Amy changed two things: have younger counselors and move the camp to a new location. She didn't change the name, though, as she really couldn't. She didn't want to, but eventually she had to call the police. The camp was shut down, and all the campers were picked up and taken home. She told us to lie so that we could move on from the tragedy. Amy, Carson, and I are the only ones left from the original camp, and she told us to not talk about it ever again. However, it's an open secret, so to speak, and many of the new employees either already know about it or eventually hear it from one of their coworkers. However, if Amy found out we still talk about it, she would have our heads on a silver platter. They eventually found Sharon a couple of weeks later. I'm not going to go into detail on what happened to her. All I saw was the back of his head, and Percy's hairstyle and its color was the closest one to it. I just can't believe Percy pretended to be normal around me. I guess him telling me nothing major ever happening around here must have been a complete lie to gain my trust. Guess the same goes for the major event that happened a few years ago. Actually, that part is true, Julio said. Julio, Graham yelled, causing me to jump. Oh God, sorry, Julio said. What? I asked. Both of them looked away from me, not saying a word. Julio already said it's true, so you guys might as well tell me now, I said. Before I could even move, Graham stood up and grabbed me by my arm with a very painful grip. Do not make that mistake, he said to me. All right, I will tell you, but you need to promise me you will not tell Amy at all. Julio nodded while I remained silent. 5 years ago, a young camper named Sharon went missing after supposedly wandering off during a group hike. One of the counselors was arrested after his DNA was found at the crime scene. I thought you said the city bought the land out through eminent domain, I said. That was what she ordered us to say, Graham said. She told us to lie so that we could move on from the tragedy. Amy, Carson, and I are the only ones left from the original camp, and she told us to not talk about it ever again. However, it's an open secret, so to speak, and many of the new employees either already know about it or eventually hear it from one of their co-workers. However, if Amy found out we still talk about it, she would have our heads on a silver platter. I already knew this stuff before I came here, Julio said. Remember how Graham said it was at a different location? Well, the city Camp Oakwood was originally located in was actually my hometown, and that murder was the talk of the town. She doesn't too like the police being involved because she's afraid that any other crime, no matter how small it is, could ruin the reputation of the camp again. Camp Oakwood is one of the most popular summer camps in our region, so another criminal act could hurt us again. But for your case, I don't think so. Like Amy said, if nothing was stolen and the only thing done, Camp Oakwood is the name of about 30 camps across the world. Not the country, but the world. Besides breaking into the apartment, was taking a photo of your unclothed back, then there would be no need. It's not a serious issue. I doubt you call the police for something as small as this. 30 camps, 30 countries. We are like any other summer camp with one caveat. We only accept approved campers and employees. I guess me, Graham, and Julio are the only normal people they've ever hired. They must be from a select family and approved by the camp director of the camp they applied for. Makes it easier for the camp to run if we at least accept campers and employees who we know want to be a problem. You heard about it, whether you wanted to or not. I gave a brief rundown on what happened, and Officer Marino thanked me and left. I'm here to get your statement on the break-in that happened earlier tonight. Percy has already confessed and is currently detained. However, I wasn't completely naked. I was wearing a towel pretty much up to my belly button, and my back was facing him. Percy had been taken away. He was no longer a threat to me now. We looked outside to see the counselors ushering the campers back into their cabins, and other staff running over to the chapel. Eventually, we found Graham in the crowd and asked what happened. All he would have saw was the back of my head, the back of my neck, and my entire back, which kinda amounts to nothing. However, we want to get your statement about what happened. The more facts, the better. So does this have something to do with why Amy doesn't want the police involved? I wasn't close enough to see it, but I've heard a couple of people say he was screaming while holding a knife. I asked. Graham told us we would have finished any work we still had that day without Carson, which thankfully wasn't too much. We ended up finishing around 2 p.m. The front of his shirt was stained red. Everyone stared in awe as he was carried towards the nurses' station. I noticed no ambulances or EMTs around, so I guess Amy didn't want them involved either. In fact, I was very close to going up to Amy and handing in my resignation. However, a part of me wanted to at least finish this session in order to get some money. I didn't care if it wasn't much, but I would rather leave with some money rather than no money. I've come this far, why stop now? But still, I was seriously coming close to quitting. I'd had enough of the secrecy and the weirdness of it all. Nothing appeared to be stolen, so I couldn't really say robbery was the main motive. Sort of, Graham said. So wait, why exactly does she not want new employees and campers to know what happened to that girl? I asked. He asked me in response, would you want everyone to keep talking about how one of your campers was murdered by one of your employees several years ago? Look, sorry to come off so aggressively, but I want to protect my job and follow the rules. I could care less if someone else told you, but I refuse to talk about it anymore. Amy is a scary lady when she gets angry. In fact, I'm gonna go find her to make sure she doesn't do anything to Percy." I guess not," I said. "That's what I thought," he said. Immediately after saying that, he got up and left. Wait, what did he mean by the fact that Amy couldn't change the name? I asked Julio. "Oh, you didn't know?" he asked me. I shook my head, and he continued. "Are you serious?" I asked. "Yeah," he responded. "They started the franchise of camps around 30 years ago. There's only one camp located in each country. Maybe that's why all the counselors act so damn weird," I thought to myself. Moments later, we got another knock on the door. Julio opened it to reveal a police officer. "Harrison Tracy?" he asked. "That's me," I said. "I'm Officer Marino," he said. Guess she did decide to call the police," I thought to myself. I was up nearly all night trying to figure out what Percy's motive was. I did come up with a crazy theory that maybe his motive was to take an indecent photo of me and then use it as some sort of blackmail. Eventually, I decided to just let it go and move on. At around 11 of the next morning, while Julio and I were hanging around the apartment, we heard a commotion coming from outside. We followed suit and ran over to the chapel. A few people were yelling for the nurses. "Carson stabbed himself," he said. What?" I asked him. "That's all I really know for sure," he said. A few minutes later, the nurses came out with Carson. After the small hysteria ended, everyone went back to what they were doing. As you can probably imagine, I was near my breaking point. In fact, I was very close to going up to Amy and handing in my resignation. However, a part of me wanted to at least finish this session in order to get some money. I didn't care if it wasn't much, but I would rather leave with some money rather than no money. "I need to talk to you. I've come this far. Why stop now?" But still, I was seriously coming close to quitting. I had had enough of the secrecy and the weirdness of it all. At around 6 p.m., while I was still contemplating whether I should quit or not, I got a text from Amy. "Meet me at the house." I sighed and began putting my shoes on. "What's up?" Julio asked me from the couch. "Amy told me to meet her at the house," I said. "Don't know why." "Probably heard about Graham telling you about Sharon's murder," he said. I responded and walked out. "How have you been doing since Percy broke into your apartment?" Amy lived by herself in a single-floor house on the other side of camp. After several minutes of walking, I eventually reached the house. "Would you like some coffee?" I knocked on her front door and she opened up. She began to pour coffee into my cup when all of a sudden she dropped the pot, spilling hot coffee all onto my shirt. "Good, you're here," she said. "Come on in." She led me into her kitchen and told me to sit down. Once I was seated, she sat down directly across the table from me. "So why did you want me to come over here?" I asked her. "I wanted to check up on you," she told me. I didn't even have to look in the mirror to know what she was pointing to. "It's the least I can do. I'm doing all right," I said. "Glad to hear that," she said. "Sure," I responded. I turned to see a red-haired woman with a scary face. My back was on fire, and I remember seeing blood on my clothes. Before I could even let out a scream, she charged at me. I would spend a lot of afternoons outside doing whatever I wanted. He said he didn't recognize her, and even though he met with a sketch artist, no new leads came of it. She got up and grabbed 2 cups from her cupboard, then grabbed the coffee pot. My parents quickly moved to another town several hours away, which is where I still live now. I screamed out in pain from the hot coffee, and Amy began profusely apologizing for spilling it on me. "I'm so sorry, Harrison," she said. My body tensed up while I read what they were talking about. I turned around to grab more paper towels to clean up the coffee on the table. Based on the look on his face, he seemed very interested. "Some of the names I don't recognize, but I will state them anyway." "It's fine," I said. "It burns like a bitch, though." "Well, I'm gonna wash your clothes." And he just tried another one, but that one also failed. I'm hoping we find out soon. The world is a mess. I have a towel in the bathroom down the hall you can use to dry off. I'll be back soon. I'm tired of waiting. "We have to keep digging. Well, here, give me your clothes," she said. "I'll wash them for you." I mean, we all remembered what happened, right? I didn't give up my shorts, but I gave her my shirt. "What's that on your back?" she asked me. I looked inside to see the light was coming from a turned-on computer monitor. I looked at the web page and discovered it to be a chat room. There were about 30 people in it, and I recognized a few names, including Julio, Carson, Percy, and Amy. I asked her where on my back, and she pointed near my waistline, right where the waistband of my shorts were. Haven't solved the other one, though. It's a different prayer, but I don't know which one specifically. I had a deep suspicion that there was more to Percy breaking into my apartment, and this seemed to confirm it. I clicked on it to reveal a grid of black and white security cameras. My stomach churned when I saw one of a very recognizable bedroom. That morning. Okay, stick to the plan. Everyone is coming in soon. We need this to work. I had never noticed it before, so it must have been hidden in the wall. It then showed me walking in and shutting the door. I fast-forwarded to about 10 minutes later. I decided to snoop through it. Sure enough, it showed me and Julio going through our daily rituals. I then noticed that one of the cameras was outside the housing wing on the corner of the building, which gave a perfect view of our front door. I decided to navigate to the footage of the previous night. I couldn't believe that this little detail slipped from my mind. I never considered it important, and none of my coworkers mentioned it at all to me, despite how seemingly obvious it was. I shut off the computer and briskly made my way back to the kitchen. I made it just in time because she arrived in the kitchen about 5 seconds later. This whole shit had been planned by Amy, but why? I couldn't understand why. Julio wasn't anywhere, but I saw his car in the parking lot. Honestly, though, I was glad he wasn't there. I saw his name in the group chat. He was in this shit just as much as they were. Amy stepped forward and used a key to unlock my door. Both of them went inside. A minute or so later, Amy came out and gave a thumbs up to Percy inside my apartment. I grabbed my keys and dashed to my car, only for my worst nightmare to be realized. My only way of transportation was now ruined, and I didn't know the woods well enough to try and run out into them. I checked my phone to see that it was a text from a number I didn't have on my cell phone. Take the path behind your building and bike towards. Use your phone for directions. Make sure you're not followed. I didn't want to look up, but I forced myself to. It read, outside was a large yellow bike resting against the wall. I hopped on and started pedaling as fast as I could down the back path, with it eventually leading me into the dark forest. A few minutes later, Percy sprinted out of the apartment, and a couple of minutes after that, Julio pulled back into the small parking lot next to the wing. However, I knew for a fact that my towel covered it up, considering how close it was to my tailbone. Also, my scar was a straight line. It wasn't that impressive. I had to stay calm, but I also needed to be quick if I wanted to get out of there. I went to grab my phone, but then I began to feel awful. My scar, I responded. I got it when I was little. The reason why, though, is pretty messed up. I'm also currently thinking of a plan B, in the case plan A doesn't work, though I highly doubt that will happen. I saw Julio, Amy, and the other staff members I recognized all sitting around the fire talking. Graham wasn't anywhere in sight, and neither was Carson, but I saw Percy near the back of the group. There were also no campers in sight. I didn't know how long I had been out, but it appeared to have been a while. I found myself on the floor near the couch. There were no lights on in the apartment, but I saw an orange light coming from outside. I cautiously peeked out the window. "What do you mean?" she asked me. I described to her what had happened. It was, without a doubt, my worst childhood experience. I was 6 years old at the time. I was outside playing by myself in my backyard, kicking a soccer ball around. I had just kicked the soccer ball into the miniature goal I had when I heard the backyard gate screeched open. I don't remember much after that, but I do remember being rushed into the hospital, and my parents crying hysterically. Thankfully, the wound wasn't too serious, and I was stitched up and good to go. The woman was never caught, even though my dad got a full view of her face. "So you have no idea why this woman did this to you?" she asked me. "Not a clue," I responded. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said. With that, she walked off, and I went to the bathroom to dry off. After I got out, I saw another room down the hall with a bluish light coming from it. Curious and a bit snoopy, I scrolled through the chat logs, and eventually reached the week I had applied for the job. Given that I don't remember everything that was said, I'll try and recount the important bits of it. Amy, he hasn't called yet, but I hope he will soon, Carson. Awesome. Hopefully you hear back soon. Raphael, has anyone found the right sermon yet? Wendy, no. Amy, if he's who I think he is, we could do it. Carson, remember these traits. We have to carve it the same way it was carved into Horus, with the same amount of time it took, and with the same angle of the crescent. Xander, Kurt said the date of an important day of his life could correlate to the pages of his book and the corresponding prayer. Julio, I know. But we've already tried the day of the battle, and his birth and death dates and the pages corresponding to them. Raphael, maybe Kurt was wrong. Amy, shut up, Raphael. He was right in some parts. Yet he was too much of a coward to admit that he royally fucked up. I scrolled down to another conversation, which was dated a few hours after I discovered them talking outside my window. Amy, I'll figure out a plan soon. I'll keep you guys updated. Carson, we have to make sure it's him, but we also have to make sure Graham isn't in our way. Julio, if I see anything, I'll let you know. He just spilled the beans to me. Said he saw you three talking. Amy, well, shit. The last message was right after that, and it was dated from the morning after Percy broke into my apartment. Carson, I figured out the first process. I could feel my heart racing a mile a minute as I stared at that computer screen. I looked up towards the top of the screen to find another tab open. My shared bedroom. It was being filmed from the top corner of the room. There was a date and time slot near the edge of the screen. As I'd expected, Julio left a few minutes before I got back. What I saw sent chills down my spine. Percy walked up to the door, but behind him was Amy. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. And then I realized my scar. My scar would be the only noteworthy thing on the back of my body. If anything, I thought to myself, Horace's crescent stab wound would be much more impressive than... But then it hit me. Sharino is my name unscrambled. Before I could even process any more information, I heard Amy yelling from down the hallway, announcing that my shirt was ready. I thanked her, trying to hide my fear as best as I could, and raced back to the apartment. My tires were slashed. I raced back inside the apartment. I didn't know what to do. I was hyperventilating and on the verge of tears, so I drank some water and began to plan out my next steps. After about 20 minutes of debating what would be the best course of action, I decided I should at least call for help, whether it was the police, my parents, or somebody. My head started spinning, my vision blurred, and I began to feel sick and weak. That's all I remembered before passing out. I jolted awake at an unknown hour. Outside, surrounding a campfire, were the counselors and other staff. Before I could even react or try to figure out what the fuck was going on, my phone dinged. Get out of the apartment through your bedroom window. There is a bicycle located right outside the window. Just as I finished reading that text, I felt that familiar feeling of having eyes on me again. Everyone at the campfire was now watching me. They were all looking at the window, staring at me with hateful, evil looks on their faces. I immediately bolted toward the bedroom window and practically ripped its screen off. I pedaled as fast as I could until I reached the location, which turned out to be an abandoned grocery store's parking lot. In the parking lot was a white truck with its headlights turned off. I then got a text that read, "I'll come to you. Stay put." The driver's side door opened and out came a man who appeared to be his 30s. When I saw him, I felt like I had seen him somewhere before. His face was one that sparked recognition, but I couldn't pinpoint where I had seen him before. "Who are you and why did you save me? You're probably wondering what the hell is going on at Camp Oakwood. Did they follow you?" he asked me. "No, I don't think so," I said, still trying to catch my breath. "Some guy broke into my apartment, another guy stabbed himself, and I found security footage of my own bedroom in the camp director's house. Name's Doug," he said. "I saved you because those guys are crazy, and I also wanted to give you some answers. Well, you can tell me what you know later, but I want to give you a clear picture on what is going on. That guy who founded your camp, Horace Oakwood, started it way back in the day after he defeated a tribe in a battle. That's what triggered World War I, which made his prophecy all the more believable. Pretty soon, the entire world started turning into an all-out violent place. Then, about 25 years ago, a prominent member of the cult named Ferris, Kurt, made a breakthrough. He claimed that the correct way to conjure Horus was to recite a prayer in Horus, a self-made Bible. There are over 3,000 pages in this book, so there would be a lot of stuff to dig through and figure out. I honestly couldn't tell if this guy was being serious or not. Still, I kept quiet and let him continue, along with carving a crescent-shaped wound into your body. That's one of the reasons why the camps were set up about 30 years ago. It was so the members' children who were aged 5 to 10 years old could learn about the teachings of Horus' harmony, and then go home and continue practicing the religion. However, like all of the other documented deaths, it didn't work, and the camp came under fire again. Yet, they still were able to rebuild and move on. The camps were also made so that it would be easier for all the members located around the world to stay connected. I will say that many of the deaths have stopped, with the last notable one happening at your camp 5 years ago. During the great battle Horus was in, he received a stabbed wound from one of the tribal men that was shaped like a crescent moon. As his life went on, he believed it to be an important sign that all of his followers should remember. Wars between countries, outcry within them. So much hate and despair everywhere. His members never worried, though. They knew that one day his spirit would be conjured, and they would finally obtain world peace. He then proceeded to take the tribe's teachings, tweaked about 95% of it, and rebranded it as his own religion. Horus may have told them that they needed to conjure his spirit, but he never explained how to correctly do so. His reason why was because he claimed that world peace would already be a near impossible task. So in order to obtain it, his followers needed to figure it out how to do it on their own. Well, long story short, his breakthrough ended up being false. Many members, out of excitement that it was finally solved after all this time, either committed suicide after they believed Horus was inside their bodies, or were arrested after killing innocent sacrificial victims. There were also members who left the cult, not wanting to be involved anymore, out of fear that they would be connected to the crimes. Horus's harmony lost almost 80% of its followers in a short span of time. So many people fell for it. Kurt, realizing what he had done, and also realizing that many members were now calling for his head, managed to escape the cult and went into hiding. He hasn't been seen since. Even his ex-girlfriend, who is also a well-known member of the cult, has supposedly never been able to find him. And thus he began his work as a pastor for his community. I mean, shit's pretty weird, I said. Oh yeah, that would be Amy. Yeah, she likes to act like Big Brother quite a bit. Gee, no surprise there. Anyway, I think I already have an idea on what is going on. However, the process on how to obtain that was nothing you would have expected. Horus claimed that the only way to obtain it was to conjure his spirit, and then the body he was possessed inside of would have to die. According to him, there were 2 ways to do this process. The first way is for someone to conjure his spirit by themselves, and then die either by suicide or by being killed by someone else. The second way is to conjure the spirit into another person by performing a ritual, and then sacrificing the victim. Okay, I didn't respond, so Doug began talking. The camp franchise you work at is part of a cult called Horus's Harmony. Horus prophesied that the world would be an extremely messed up place once he was gone, and that his followers' mission was to obtain world peace. Anyway, Horus eventually died. The day after he died, Gavrilo Princip killed Franz Ferdinand. Now here's the funny part about this whole thing. So many years, and I mean many years, went by without any clue on how to conjure Horus. Now, Kurt was well known throughout all the camps and members located around the world, and when he made the supposed breakthrough, many members started performing the process whether on themselves or on another people. Even though Kurt may have been wrong initially, many people believed they did have to recite a sermon, but it had to be the right one. I stood there in disbelief while listening to everything Doug was explaining to me. The killings and suicides kept happening, but more members kept joining, and those members would marry and have children. Sharon, I said. Yep, Sharon Ida Raffington, Doug said. A counselor killed her when he was convinced that he discovered the right page number and prayer. How has no one stopped them yet? I asked him. That I really can't explain, Doug responded, but more than likely, There are high-power people involved with them that probably help hide the cult from the outside world. Politicians, police, etc. There has been some talk that someone inside your camp successfully conjured Horus by themselves. Now, you would think that the person who conjured Horus would just kill themselves so that everyone else can obtain world peace. But actually, the plan is for them to meet in the middle of the rituals. What I mean is this: person A successfully has Horus possess them, and then performs the victim ritual on person B. He always explained from the beginning that he would need to be conjured and then possess someone as body. I yelled at him. Your name being an anagram for Sereno is just a crazy coincidence. Besides, you look nothing like Horus. If someone were to be resurrected, they would most likely look the same. Then person B is killed, and world peace finally comes. So it's basically both rituals being performed at different points in time. The same process for both. Did you ever have family or friends that worked at one of the camps or was a camper? So why are you explaining all of this to me? I could have sworn they were after me because I was Horus resurrected or something. I asked. I wish I could tell you the exact reason, but it hasn't been explicitly stated. Well, my friend, you are most likely the next person to be killed when they attempt to make Horus' spirit possess you. It was a question I had been wanting to ask since he began his monologue on the history of Horus as harmony. I will tell you this, though. There are 2 other employees at your camp that also aren't a part of this cult. It's one of the older workers and his son. It might seem weird that a cult would hire 2 people who don't to believe in anything they believe, but your camp did just that. There's probably more to it. Anyway, if you can find out who they are, they can help you. I've had family killed by these guys, and I plan on taking this whole shit show down. I also have a stab wound on my back, though it is a straight line and not a crescent. Jesus Christ, I said, the seriousness of the situation hitting me hard. I still didn't completely trust this guy, but I trusted him over everyone else at the camp. Heck, I couldn't even trust Graham at this point, though he hasn't shown himself to be a huge believer in this stuff. But who knows what he does in private? He could have a shrine to Horace Oakwood, for all I know, in his apartment. But if he isn't, maybe that was the old guy Doug was referring to. But he never mentioned he had a son, so I wasn't sure about that, either. What? He asked me, looking perplexed. I hopped back on the bike and started pedaling back down the highway that was connected to the parking lot. Your best bet is to keep pedaling away from here and go into hiding. I hopped off and went into the tree line surrounding the highway. He claimed he had been at this camp before as a counselor, but he must have done something so horrific that they are after me now, even though it has been years and time usually heals the wound. After a few attempts, he finally answered. Unless, of course, it was really bad. I thought that part of my life was over. I thought I could get away. You also named me Harrison, which is Sharino, but the letters rearranged. Now, tell me the truth. Thankfully, it was completely dead at night, so I didn't see any cars coming up and down the 2-way road. You have a massive target on your back, and they will not stop at anything in order to complete their end goal. They listened to me, and it got so much worse. So many people still blame me, and I thought I had escaped. Maybe you being there would finally get them off my back. It was a real shitty thing to do, you son, but I was tired of it. I'm so sorry. I ended the phone call and began shielding my eyes. I did everything, but I guess naming you Harrison was a clue on who I really was. While listening to my dad, I hadn't noticed that a car had pulled alongside the road. When I finally did notice it, I saw blue lights blaring on top of the car. My apartment at Camp Oakwood was broken into a couple of days ago. You asked for my statement. He led me back out onto the side of the road to talk to me. I began to tell him about what was going on, how I had basically ended up hiding on the side of a highway in the middle of the night. Although I wanted to leave that part of me behind, I just couldn't. It was too much a part of my life. My name is Harrison, and Sharino is my name with some letters rearranged. I need you to tell me the truth. No, he said. Horus never prophesied that he would come back in a resurrected form. I remembered what Graham had told me when Amy said she would take care of Percy. Before I could even react, he pulled a pistol out of his belt and pointed at my head. If you mess up the victim ritual after someone already has Horus inside of them, Horus will disappear again. That's one of the theories I've heard. May want to use that to your advantage if you do get caught. Unless you are dying and need help, I'm going back to bed. They are after me because of something you did. What the hell did you do? The last thing I need is to wake up your mother. Also, I heard another theory that states if a person is possessed by Horus, they have the ability to appear physically as him. So yeah, trust no one that looks like him, though I doubt you already trust that many people in this area. Good luck, don't worry, Amy will take care of you. So why am I a target? Revenge, he calmly said. But if you didn't trust me, then why would you have stayed here for the last few minutes talking with me when you know they are coming after you? Also, I saved your ass and led you to a pretty well-hidden location in these woods. Just think about that. What? I asked in complete bewilderment. Well, besides the obvious trying to obtain world peace bit, from what I understand, you are a target to also get revenge on you. I haven't done a single damn thing to them, I said. Then it must be someone you know, he said. Oh, you got to be kidding me, was the first thought that formed in my head. Yeah, I responded slowly. Yeah, I do. Then I would talk to them and get some info. How do you know all of this? I asked. I have an inside guy reporting to me on what's going on. Well, who is it? I asked. Now that I'm not going to tell you, I don't want to risk his safety. I then heard a text alert and Doug pulled out his phone and read what was on the screen. Look, sorry I have to end it here, but I need to get going. Just as he was getting back into his white truck, I yelled out to him, How am I supposed to trust you? That's up for you to decide, he said. As he got in, he turned back and yelled at me. Oh, by the way, he yelled out. He then started his truck and drove off, leaving me alone in the parking lot. All I knew was that I needed to get out of these woods and figure out my next steps. After about an hour of biking, I needed to take a breather. The whole hour I was biking, however, all I could think about was my dad. I needed answers, and needed them now. So even though it was in the middle of the night, I called my dad. Hello, he said. Dad, it's Harrison, I said. Harrison, it's the middle of the night, he said. What have you been hiding from me? I asked him calmly. What are you talking about? He asked me, his tone becoming more annoyed with every passing second. You said you worked at this camp, but this place is a goddamn cult, and you know it, I said. There was a long pause, and I mean long. It must have been about a minute before he spoke again. I'm so sorry, Harrison, he said. Dad, one of those cultists, stabbed me as a child. I expected him to tell me the reason, but instead he told me something else that threw another curveball into this whole saga. I shouldn't have told them that I found a way, but they would never leave me alone, so I hoped that, well, he then began quietly sobbing, but I didn't even get to do anything else. It was a police car. An officer turned on his flashlight and pointed it at me. What are you doing? I heard a familiar voice ask. Officer Marino? I asked in return. How do you know my name? He asked me. It's me, Harrison Tracy, I said. He gave out a surprised, oh right, before turning off his flashlight. Okay, he said. I looked up at him, dumbfounded by what he said. What? I asked. And then it hit me like a bullet to my skull. Amy doesn't like the police involved. If Amy didn't like having the police involved, why would she have called them specifically for me? I looked up at Officer Marino, and a soul-killing smile formed on his face. Now, come on, Harrison, he said. It's time. I then heard footsteps behind me, and just before the world faded back into darkness again, I finally remembered where I had seen Doug before. He was the man in the painting in the chapel at Camp Oakwood. I woke in a dimly lit room. The back of my head was aching terribly, but when I attempted to touch it, I discovered that I couldn't move my arms. I also noticed that I wasn't wearing any clothes, except for my boxers. I looked over and found that my arms were tied up. I then looked down and found my legs were tied up too. I then recognized the room that I was in to be the chapel at the camp. I also recognized some of the faces in the crowd, including Officer Marino, Percy, and the other employees at the camp. In front of the large crowd were three figures wearing black robes, their faces shrouded with hoods. They were tied up so that I was lying on my back spread eagle on whatever I was on, which felt like a wooden board. I then noticed that I wasn't even on the ground. The board that I was situated on was about 6 feet off the ground, the board slightly angled back. So glad you could join us for this special event. He's waking up, I heard someone say. I looked forward and saw that there was a massive crowd, at least 200 people, standing there watching me. He's actually here with us right now, you know? Once everyone's attention was on me, the 3 hooded figures lowered their hoods, and I immediately recognized them to be Amy, Carson, and Julio. "Welcome back, Harrison," Amy said. His skinny body grew larger in size. His bald head began growing hair, and his wrinkles started to fade from his face. After about 20 seconds, his body stopped morphing. "We understand you're in denial right now," Julio said. "By the way, I would rather you now call me Horace, since that's who I am. You will see Carson soon. But in just a few moments, you will be our hero." If you haven't guessed by now, Carson successfully conjured me by yelling out my famous sermon from 1892, and then stabbing himself in the stomach to form a crescent-shaped wound. After all of this time, someone finally discovered it. I'm disappointed, but at the same time, proud as well. My dad was the one that fucked you guys up. Because of you, we will finally obtain world peace for everyone to experience. Well, except for you. And it caused many people to die or leave the cult, and he was forced to go into hiding. No need to explain to me. I don't give a shit about him anymore. I mean, he's the one who let me go here so that he could save his own ass. Julio and Amy didn't even flinch. They must have known all along. In fact, I'm positive it was my dad's ex-girlfriend who did it, that psycho bitch. Instead, I saw something that had I not seen with my own 2 eyes, I would have never believed. Never at all did I consider that Amy could have been the one who stabbed me, let alone also be my dad's ex-girlfriend. "You probably don't understand what's going on right now," Carson said. "I'll quickly explain." "We are." I screamed at her, my words almost echoing in the chapel. "But why me? Why not go after my dad?" As just mentioned, Carson successfully conjured Horace and is currently possessed by him, so he completed the first possible ritualistic process. Now, you might think that since Carson currently has Horace within him, we would just kill Carson and be done with it. However, Carson doesn't want to die, and I don't blame him. I was seething with rage. Soon, not only will you die, but we will also live in a peaceful world that we've all wanted for so long. It is unfortunate that your dad wanted to be here to watch us finally avenge all of our fallen brothers and sisters, but he'll probably find out eventually. I couldn't believe that this was so meticulously planned out. It seemed so staged, yet I knew it wasn't. I didn't say a word as Amy continued. So instead, we will now perform the second ritual, which is to have Horace possess another person, meeting in the middle, so to speak. I also knew you liked to view that wall to see if there were any appealing jobs on there. Well, I made an ad, waited until you noticed it, and, to my utter joy, watched you take it down to bring it home. When you saw me, I got a little nervous, but you walked off without batting an eye. I quickly made it back to the camp and waited for your phone call. Leaving this lunatic society was the best decision I've ever made. When you called, I was so excited that I completely forgot to ask you for your name to confirm that it was you. Thank goodness you remembered for me. And when you said your name, I accidentally hit my desk in excitement. Having his son become a new victim would be the ultimate punishment. Harrison, ever since you were born, we've been watching you. Amy, you have wanted me dead for so long. If you want to kill me, now's your chance. I think that's a great idea, she said. Just perform the ritual on me, and you guys can finally have world peace. Please just leave my son alone. I'm so glad that I get to see you again. I've missed you so much. You never suspected a thing, and never once saw us. You will probably never forgive me, but that's why I'm here. Well, except for once. Horace's harmony, I interrupted him. I screamed. You really think I was going to let it be that easy? My dad grabbed his neck and collapsed on the floor. You knew full well what I was walking into, and you let me go so that you would be left alone. Horace told you himself that we also want to get our revenge. I know everything. He did let you come here. When I walked out, I noticed a blonde woman staring at me. I never considered it important, but now Doug told me. I expected mild confusion or something to that effect, but instead, Carson gave out a laugh and smiled at me. "Oh, Doug, my good all-outside guy," Carson said. I tensed up, knowing what was about to happen. Amy walked up to my dad, and he closed his eyes and bowed his head. "Where?" I asked him. "Oh, right," Carson said. "Just give me a second." I expected Doug to be dragged in or something, but that didn't happen. Carson's body began twitching, and then it started to change shape. Standing now where Carson once was Doug. Remember how I said that if a person was possessed by Horus that they would have the ability to change physically into him? Doug asked me. "Yeah?" I said, still stunned by what I just witnessed. "Well, ta-da?" He exclaimed. I was too stunned and too confused to understand what he just said. "Ladies and gentlemen," Horus spoke out to the crowd. Everyone either murmured in excitement or didn't react. So unless Horus, or who you liked to call Doug, hadn't explained to you what is going on yet, Julio began to say, "We will be performing a ritual on you." "But there's another reason, of course," Amy said. "But I didn't fucking do anything," I said. "Oh, your dad, Curtis," she said. "Also known as Ferris Kurt," I said. "I know, he came up with a way to conjure Horus, but it was incorrect. But as you also probably know already, this isn't the first time we've tried to hurt you," she said. "Yeah, one of you crazy fucks stabbed me as a child." "Well, I don't think I'm psycho or a stupid," she said before smiling. It took me a few seconds to understand what she said, but when I did, I actually felt my jaw drop. "You're the one who stabbed me? Guilty as charged?" she said. Though, of course, I had a different hair color at the time. "Jesus Christ," I said under my breath. "Well," she began, "what better way to torture someone than by torturing their loved ones?" "When?" I asked. "When you discovered this job," she answered. My mind immediately flashed back to the day I discovered that help wanted ad at the coffee shop. "You motherfucker," I said angrily. "I knew you had flunked out of school and you were currently stuck at your folks' place." I wasn't even scared anymore. And so we've come full circle. Not even 3 seconds after she said that, the doors to the chapel opened, and 2 large men came in dragging somebody behind him. "Hey Amy, we found this guy snooping outside," one of them said. "You won't believe who it is." They threw the man forward, and a grim but recognizable face became visible to me. "Dad," I yelled, "what are you doing here?" "Well, I'll be damned," Julio said. "If it isn't Ferris Kurt himself," Amy said, as if she was finishing Julio's sentence. "That's not my name anymore," my dad said. "Right, because Curtis Tracy is such a better name," Amy said, sarcastically. "I don't give 2 shits about you," my dad said. "Why the hell did you come here?" I yelled at him. "I'm sorry, Harrison," he said. "Don't give me that bullshit," I yelled back. "I know, and I'm sorry," he said. He then turned to Amy and began speaking to her. I looked at Amy, who was quiet for about 10 seconds before she made a decision. You know what? Julio and Carson, who I hadn't noticed until then had morphed back into himself, just stared at her in disbelief. "You ready to die?" she asked. "Yes," my dad said quietly. "Wait, don't you need the Bible to perform the ritual?" Carson asked. "Oh, we're not performing the ritual on Ferris," she said. Before anyone could react, she pulled out a knife and stabbed my dad in the neck. "Dad." "Oh, Ferris, you little fool," she said. "You piece of shit." I screamed at her. "I'm surprised you care," she said to me without a single ounce of emotion in her voice. "He's still my father," I said, the tears rushing down my face. The tears rushing down my face. My dad wasn't moving anymore, his body now lying in a pool of his own blood. I knew he was dead. "All right, well, now that we got that over with, can we please continue?" Carson asked. "Yeah," Amy said, her smile returning. "Let's get started. What if you guys fail?" I asked them, all the while still crying. "Horus told me that if you mess up this ritual when he's already conjured, then he will disappear. What are you gonna do? Keep trying until I'm dead?" "That's the plan," Amy said. "Besides, I'm absolutely positive we have the right sermon," Carson said. "All right, let's get started." Carson grabbed a stepladder and walked up it to reach the area I was hung up at. "I guess your stab wound isn't that serious, huh?" "I just want to thank you for what you're about to do for us," Carson said, a small smile forming on his face. "Go yourself," I said before spitting in his face. In one hand was the Bible. In the other, a large carving knife. "We've have the best nurses a person could ask for," he said. I opened my eyes, and Carson was just staring at me, a terrified look his face. He then revealed 2 things from his robe. He opened the book to a page, and began to read. And once he finished, he plunged the knife into my gut. I screamed from the pain as he meticulously carved a new wound into my body. I closed my eyes, anticipating my death. This is it, I thought to myself. This is how I die. Mercilessly executed by a fucking cult. I thought my body would begin to morph into Horus or something, but about 20 seconds passed, and nothing happened. He closed his eyes, and then opened them again quickly. Amy had just said that she hasn't fulfilled her desire for revenge, but not their desire for revenge. It may have meant nothing at all, but she was also the one who explained the entirety of why she wanted revenge on my dad. With no other options, I decided to test that notion. It was a long shot, but I hoped it would work. What happened? Julio asked. Everyone has been waiting for years to obtain world peace, and instead of killing the one who is currently possessed by Horus, you want to make them wait even more just because you want me to be the sacrifice. I messed up, Carson said quietly. Now they have to wait until you guys find the right sermon in order to fulfill their religious duty. I promised myself that I wouldn't stop until Ferris paid the price for what he did to me and my friends. She doesn't care about what you guys want or seek. Carson looked up and his face was as white as a ghost. He definitely heard what I said. She just cares about herself. How selfish of her. Well, I'll tell you this. This was my only shot, and I hope someone sided with me. They haven't figured out the right sermon yet, and even if I died before they discover it, and Amy's true desire would be satisfied, you guys would have to wait until someone else was captured and tortured just to get world peace. Unless, of course, you just kill the person who already has Horus possessed inside of them right now. You killed Ferris, and he's the one who wronged you. You got your revenge on him. But I've waited my entire life to fulfill my religious obligation, and I won't force you to make me and my friends wait any longer. I hit the floor hard, the impact momentarily dazing me. I then saw someone standing over and heard a voice that I didn't expect to hear. But now you don't even seem to care about the mission anymore. You just want to fill your need for vengeance, but it will never be satisfied. You're punishing these guys just as much as you are punishing me. All you have to do is kill Carson. He's already weak from the stab wound, so it should be easy. What will it be? Amy yelled at him, a bloody knife in her hand. Amy got bone-rushed as well and was knocked back against the wall, seemingly unconscious. I knocked her down just as she raised the knife in the air. Julio managed to get out of the way and was pushing his body against the wall next to where Amy was. But my stab wound had severely weakened my strength, and she was gaining the upper hand fast. She managed to get on top of me, the knife still in her hand. I have no idea where he got it, but I could have cared less at the moment. People began jumping onto Carson, punching and kicking him. I didn't feel bad one bit. He did stab me after all. You're making them wait just because of you. As we were making our way to the back, I found Julio on the ground. He also appeared to be unconscious. I don't care about world peace. I don't care about my religious duty. I only care about me getting my revenge. I made it so that they get both for the price of one. What? Amy yelled, "Not because of me." She just admitted that she only cared about revenge. Julio tried to grab him, but Raphael barged right through him. Once he took lead, several others began charging the altar as well, some screaming that it was finally going to happen. Everyone, except for Julio and Carson, was stunned by what Amy just said. Despite the predicament I was still stuck in, combined with the pain in my gut, I smiled wildly. "I messed up," Carson said. "I don't care if your dad is now dead. I haven't fulfilled my desire for revenge yet." "Carson, perform the ritual on yourself again." "Horus is gone," he said. "He's gone. ING. Gone. I messed up. Oh God." He threw the knife onto the ground in rage. "Good job, bro," I said, the pain from the wound making it hard to speak. "Shut up, Harrison," Amy yelled. "Just because we messed up doesn't mean you're getting out of this alive." Carson grabbed the knife and began saying the sermon. But while Carson was conjuring Horus again, an idea popped into my head. "I like how you seem to be the only person who wants revenge." I spoke as loud as I could. "I don't care," she said. "Most of them don't even want revenge. They just want to have world peace." "But the plan just failed," I said. "That's been the plan all along," she yelled at me. my dad just did pay the price. I screamed, my stomach hurting more from me projecting my voice. "I don't care," she screamed back. "I will never be satisfied until you are dead. I don't care what everyone else wants." Her scream practically echoed in the room. I couldn't believe she fell for my bluff. You could hear a pin drop in the chapel. "Well, you guys just heard the truth," I said. Almost all of them turned their heads towards Carson, who was sitting on the floor, his blood pooling beneath him. "So I give you guys a choice. We can wait here for them to keep trying to solve the second ritual, or you can finally obtain the world peace you have forever wanted." I prayed this would work in my favor. All I needed was one person to see the sense I was spewing, and I could be spared. After about 10 seconds, someone came from the crowd and started walking toward the altar. "Raphael, don't you even think about coming up here," Amy yelled at him. "Go away, Amy," he said. "Harrison's right." Before anyone could react, he charged the altar. That's when all hell broke loose. Carson tried to limp away, but he was caught almost immediately. I then felt my board begin to move, and before I knew it, I began falling back to earth. "Don't worry, I'll get you out of here," Percy yelled. Percy began untying my arms and legs, but just as he was beginning to untie my last leg, he was pulled from behind and thrown to the ground. "What do you think you're doing?" She cornered Percy against the wall. After seeing this, I managed to untie the last knot and charged at her as fast as I could. Amy and I began wrestling on the ground. Under normal circumstances, I would have been much stronger than her. "I don't care if I die here today, you will at least be joining me," she snarled at me. Just when I thought I was done for, I heard a smack sound, and Amy fell limp onto me. Standing behind her was Percy, holding what looked like a baton. "Come on, we need to get out of here," he said. He picked me up and started leading me over to the back of the chapel. "Quincy, throw one into the crowd," he yelled. "We need a diversion." I turned to see someone I didn't recognize throwing Molotov cocktails into the crowd. It exploded and people began screaming. He then raced back to where we were, and Percy found a small window in the back room of the chapel. After a few more swings, Percy broke through the window and we made it outside. Percy began slamming the baton against the window in order to break it. Percy then pulled out a walkie and radioed to someone on the other line. "Bring it around, hurry," he yelled into the walkie. "We need to get out of here." Not even 5 seconds later, a white truck came barreling down the road of the camp. A familiar face was behind the steering wheel. "Get in," Graham yelled. She was happy to report that none of my organs seemed to be damaged by the stab wound, and that I would more than likely be okay, and take a picture of my scar so that she could prove that it was definitely me. He didn't want to do it, but she threatened him, and eventually he relented. We stopped at a house about 40 minutes from Camp Oakwood. While driving there, Percy used his shirt to put pressure on my wound. It was just a trick to get your hopes up on you, possibly escaping. When we eventually reached the house, the three of them brought me inside the house, where I was introduced to a woman named Bay, who turned out to be Graham's ex-wife. We all piled in, and Graham accelerated out of Camp Oakwood. Bee was apparently a nurse, and she helped disinfect and bandage my wound. Well, that was the plan until Carson successfully conjured Horus, and Amy had to hasten her plans. He knew what was going to happen to me, so he Graham and Quincy, who I later found out wasn't even an employee at the camp. But Percy's best friend back home came up with a way to get me out. It was a shitty move to do, but I told him it was okay. I got out with my life. That's all that mattered. The plan was for Quincy to make homemade Molotov cocktails and throw several of them. She said that would be the plan, and anyone who disagreed with her would have to deal with it. So many of her employees were angered by her actions. If it wasn't for that alone, you would have been a goner. The only people who sided with her were Julio and Carson. I'm just thankful you, me, Quincy, and my dad all made it out alive. She gave it away right before that when she said that she didn't care how long it took them to get it. Right, Graham is my dad. And the worker also had a son who apparently didn't either. After thinking over a little bit, I actually suspected Percy and Graham were related, especially considering how concerned Graham was for Percy's safety when Amy planned to talk to Percy about why he broke into my apartment. But as long as I would die as a result of it, it didn't matter to her. I don't know how the police found out. But they did. My biggest question is this: why did my dad let me go? A list of the people who died was published as well. Why would he let me go when he knew who was there and that they were dangerous people? I just can't understand why. But then he came back and tried to sacrifice himself so that I could possibly live. He died trying to save me in a way. I didn't see a single kid in the crowd while I was tied up. Honestly, I don't care enough to want to know the answer to that question, but it was just another mystery to this whole saga. All they said was that they were free now. I guess they must have been held captive or something. Horace himself said that these guys are all around the globe, and they are probably still looking for me as I type this. After all, I practically destroyed one of their bases of operation. I haven't spoken to Graham or Percy or anyone involved since I've escaped, and I plan on keeping that way. I just can't risk it. However, typing it here has really helped me. I will say that I have read the comments you guys have been sending me. First off, thank you guys for your less concern for my well-being. I appreciate it greatly. Secondly, for those who said I was too naive and trustworthy, you're right. I was indeed. But now, I'm not. In fact, I can't trust anyone. That's why I'm hiding alone. But they never told me, even when Percy and I talked just before I left to go into hiding. Regarding his death, I feel well in the middle. I'm devastated that my dad is dead, but I am still angry at him for letting me walk into a trap that should have killed me. I saw Julio, Carson, Raphael, and my dad on the list. She even said I've dealt with it before. I don't know what she meant, but my only logical conclusion was that she was referring to when Amy stabbed me in my childhood. I don't know, and I don't plan on trying to find out soon. Ever since I escaped, I haven't contacted anyone in my family. I can't trust them anymore. My mom must be heartbroken that she practically lost both her husband and son. Maybe one day I will reach out to her, but right now, I just can't. One name I didn't see, though, was Amy. That means she's still alive and possibly looking for me. Plus, she also killed my dad, which basically was her revenge. Carson I understood because he didn't want to die, but I wonder why Julio agreed with her. When they met around the campfire the night I escaped, it was so that Amy could explain what would be happening. To my shock, they were also waiting to see when I would wake up, and once someone noticed I was up and moving, Amy alerted Carson to text me the message I received, and waited until I was recaptured. Percy told me that wasn't part of the plan, so Carson must have had something else in mind. I don't know what, but if the end goal was for me to get captured, then I guess it doesn't matter now. They just looked at each other, and Graham replied, "We're free now. It doesn't matter anymore." I drove off the property and away from the city, promising myself to never return. Once I got out of the city, I ditched the truck and went into hiding. That is where I am now. I have already changed my appearance, and I'm currently in the process of changing my name. And 2, me getting Amy to say that she didn't care about everyone else's desire for world peace. When several of the people in the crowd stormed the altar, they took their chance and proceeded with the plan as best as they could. I asked him what he, Percy, Quincy, and B would do, and he said to not worry about them. I didn't know if I could trust them at this point, but I had no other options. Percy and Quincy were both bruised, but nothing too severe. While being patched up, I talked with Percy for a while, and he explained quite a bit to me. As it turned out, Percy had been forced by Amy to go into my apartment. Despite him failing, they stuck with the plan of Percy being arrested by Officer Marino. I asked Percy if he was just a cult member dressed as a police officer, and he confirmed it. Not that I was surprised to hear that. He managed to take a photo. However, not only was my towel obscuring my scar, but the photo also came out blurry. Anyway, Percy was never taken away and would remain at the camp out of view. The plan was for you to make it to that location, only to find Carson, or Horace I should call him, and Officer Marino waiting there for you. Well, Officer Marino wasn't there, I said. He seemed perplexed by that. Well, Amy never told us that, he said. Then again, it appeared that Amy hid quite a bit from you guys, I said before we both laughed. Percy then began explaining that he had come up with a plan to get me out of there. However, they didn't plan on 2 things. 1, my dad showing up unexpectedly. However, he explained to me that they did have to wait until they tried the ritual on me, because if they tried it before the ritual attempt, it would have been harder to get out. because everyone would have been pissed at them, and they too would have been attacked. He also explained to me that many of the counselors were beyond pissed off when Amy proclaimed that they would have to wait until they got the ritual right on me before they could all complete their mission. I wonder if they got world peace finally, Percy joked. Well, if their definition of world peace is a fight in a chapel, then they did, I said. Congratulations to them. Still, dude, you really saved yourself when you managed to break Amy, he told me. I mean, she did it to herself, I said. The desire could never be satisfied, he said. Your dad? I asked. Oh yeah, you didn't know that either, he said. Honestly, I always suspected that was a possibility. Horace did say an older worker at the camp didn't believe in this stuff. I ended up resting for the night, and the next day, Graham gave me the keys to the truck and told me to get out of town. Just as I started the car, I asked Graham and Percy why they would work at a summer camp when they knew it was run by a cult. I wanted to ask them what that meant, but I decided to just get out of there. I ended up reading in the news that about 20 people died in the chapel, and many others were injured and or arrested. Even though I have since escaped and am trying to move on with my life, I still have so many unanswered questions about what happened. I mean, I just don't get it. And I also don't understand my mom. She must have known about my dad's previous life, yet she also let me go. Another problem is that I don't understand why Carson, disguised as Horace, gave me all of that information and then let me try to escape. Also, I did never get the answer as to why Graham and Percy would work at the summer camp. And lastly, though it isn't that important, what happened to the campers? I am just so fucking frustrated that I will never get these answers. This happened a while ago, and I've never been able to get full closure on all of this. All I know is that I will always have a target on my back, a summer camp known as Camp Oakwood.